In this video, we're going to solve rational equations. I'm going to write the restricted values of x. So the first example is 3 over x minus 2 plus 2 over x plus 1 equal to 1. Okay. So first thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of fractions. So in order to get rid of fractions, I'm going to multiply everything by the least common denominator. Now I see that I have an x minus 2 factor and an x plus 1 factor. So that means I need to multiply through by x minus 2 times x plus 1. And so when I multiply this through, see what we get. All right, so when I multiply here, I'm going to get x minus 2 times x plus 1. And I distribute here, and I get the same thing. And I distribute here, and I get the same thing. Okay, so that's whenever I distribute this to each one of those pieces. All right, so this can be written over 1. This can also be written over 1. Now what happens? We've got some canceling that's going on here. So x minus 2 and x minus 2. Bless me. All right, so those cancel, and then over here we have an x plus 1 and x plus 1 that cancel. So this reduces to, well, it looks like x plus 1 times 3, and then that's just a 1 in the denominator, so that goes away. If you want to write over 1, you can. And then we have, looks like x minus 2 times 2, and it looks like we just have the 1 in the denominator, and then this just looks like x minus 2 times x plus 1. So I can simplify here. I'm going to distribute the 3 to each one of those. That's 3x plus 3. I'm going to distribute the 2 to each one of those. That's 2x minus 4. If I FOIL this out, I get x squared, and then plus x minus 2x minus 2. So collect like terms on the left. I have a 3x and a 2x makes 5x. A 3 and a negative 4 make negative 1. Over here I've got x squared, and then this makes negative x, and then minus 2. Now to solve a quadratic, I need to set it equal to 0 and have a greater than 1 or greater than 0. Now a is already greater than 0, so I need to move this over here in order to have it equal to 0. So I have x squared minus 6x and then minus 1. All right, now AC method, I need it to multiply negative 1 and add to negative 6. It's 1, so I can use a trick. Well, 1 times negative 1, but this adds to 0. So it's impossible for me to add to negative 6, so I can't use AC method, but I can use quadratic formula with a equal to 1, b equal to negative 6, and c equal to negative 1. So quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So I use my parentheses, so negative, and then b is negative 6 plus or minus square root negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c over 2a. So this will simplify, negative negative make a positive, and then negative 6 squared is 36. 36, and then minus and minus makes a plus 4, so that's 40 in the radical over 2. Now square root of 40, I think 40 breaks up to 4 times 10, and the square root of 4 is 2. So this reduces to 6 plus or minus 2 square root 10 over 2. Every one of them has a 2 factor in common, so this reduces to 3, 1, and 1. Okay, so what does that equal? That's 3 plus or minus the square root of 10. That's my x value there. All right? Woo! Now, those are the solutions. We got to check it. Okay, you got to check solution. Okay, how do I check it? I plug it into the original equation. What was the original equation? Right there. So you would need to plug this in. By golly, that would be a booger to plug in. So 3 over 3 plus the square root of 10 minus 2 plus 2 over 3 plus the square root of 10 plus 1 equal to 1. Okay, so you can do this. Type it in your calculator. 3 divided by 3 plus the square root of 10, and then minus 2, and then plus 2 divided by parentheses 3 plus the square root of 10, and then plus 1, close parentheses, and guess what? You get 1. So this works. And then if you check the negative one, doing it the same way. So let me just copy and paste here. It also works when this is minus square root of 10. Okay, so both x equals 3 plus square root of 10 and 3 minus square root of 10 work. All right, now restricted values, are there any restricted values? Well, we set the denominator is equal to 0. Okay, if I set the denominator equal to 0, what can I not have? Well, x cannot be 2. Okay, so x can't be 2. That's good. We don't have a 2 for a solution. And what else? X can't be, looks like x cannot equal negative 1. Okay, so restricted values are 2 and negative 1. The solutions are 3 plus or minus square root of 10. All right, let's do another one. So we have an example of x cubed minus 6x squared over x squared plus 2x minus 48 equals negative 9x minus 8 over x plus 8. Now, you could do this by just multiplying through, but I promise you, if you factor first, you're going to make your life a little bit better. So factor first. Factor first, and I promise it's going to be easier for you. So if I factor the numerator, what can come out? Well, it looks like they both have an x squared in the numerator, so I can factor that out. Now if I factor that out, I have an x left and a minus 6. In the denominator, this is a trinomial. A is equal to 1, so maybe it's an easy AC method, right? So multiply to negative 48, add to 2, 6 and 8. If I make 6 negative, negative 6 plus 8 gets me 2, so that works. So I have what? An x plus, or an x minus 6 because of that negative 6 here, and then an x plus 8 because of that positive 8 there. Okay? Ooh, that seems useful, all right? And this is equal to, well, what can I do here? I can factor a negative out. I don't know if that's going to help any, but I can definitely factor a negative out of this. And in the denominator, I have an x plus 8. Okay? Now, before we do any canceling and simplifying, first thing I need to do is set the denominator is equal to 0. Okay, the denominator equal to 0. That tells me x can't be equal to negative 8. That'd be a bad one. And then what about this? This tells me x can't be equal to 6. And this one here tells me x can't be equal to -8. So these are restricted values. So if I get any of these as an answer, then I know right off the bat that those are extraneous. All right, now that we have the restricted values, so restricted values of x are 6 and -8, okay? Those are restricted values. Let's see if we can't simplify. Okay, is there anything that cancels? The x minus 6 and the x minus 6 cancel. Okay, so I have x squared over x plus 8 equals -9x plus 8 over x plus 8. Now, how do I get rid of the denominator? I'm going to multiply through by the least common denominator. Looks like that happens to be the same thing. So multiply through by x plus 8. And so what happens? The x plus 8's cancel, right? So I have x plus 8 times this thing that's inside here. Okay. And so what happens? This x plus 8 cancels with that x plus 8. That x plus 8 cancels with that x plus 8. And so I get x squared equals, now I'm going to distribute this back, so that ended up not helping too much. So that's -9x minus 8. Now I want this to be a quadratic I can solve, so I'm going to add 9x and 8 to both sides. And so I get x squared plus 9x plus 8 equal to 0. And now I'll have an AC method with a equal to 1, so this could be a trick one. So multiply 8 times 1 adds to 9, so that's what I want. So this gets me an x plus 8, and this gets me an x plus 1. So this is x plus 8 times x plus 1 equal to 0. And I set each piece equal to 0. X plus 8 equals 0. And x plus 1 equal to 0. This tells me that x equals -8 and x equals -1. Now, are these my answers? Well, maybe. We got to check. We got to check it. So check with the original equation. So the original equation was x cubed minus 6x squared over x squared plus 2x minus 48 equals -9x minus 8 over x plus 8. Well, guess what happens? If I plug this -8 in here, if I plug in -8 in here, well, if I plug it in here, what does it do? This gets me -9 times -8 minus 8 divided by -8 plus 8. What do I know about this right here? This is, I don't even know what that is, but this is 0. And I can't divide by 0. This is undefined. Okay? So this is not a solution. And how would we have known this was not a solution without ever working through and plugging that in? Well, we're given up here that the restricted values are 6 and -8. So a benefit of finding those restricted values is that if you get one of those restricted values as an answer, you automatically know this is extraneous. Okay? So now really we just need to check this one. So if I plug this one into the equation, what do I get? I get -1 cubed minus 6 times -1 squared over -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 48 equals 9 times -1 minus 8 over -1 plus 8. Okay, the numerator here looks like that's -1, and then that's squared, so that's positive, so that's minus 6, so that's -7 over, now this is 1 minus 2 minus 48, so that's minus 49. So it looks like that's 1 over 7 positive on this side. Now, on this side over here, what do I have? I got negative and negative makes a positive 9 minus 8, that's 1. And then 8 minus 1 gets me 7, so that's correct. So what does this tell me? X equals negative 1 is a solution. So I can box this up or check it or however you want to tell me that that is a solution. Okay? So hopefully, this gives you an idea of what you're looking for. This is probably one of the hardest problems that you're going to run into. All right? Probably one of the hardest problems you're going to run into.